For a long time, he seemed forgotten, away from the spotlight, almost as if he had been erased from the industry. But when Squid Game premiered, Lee Jung-jae came back with everything and shocked the world. What few people know is that behind this meteoric success lies a trajectory marked by falls, controversies, rejections, and a turnaround worthy of a drama script. Today, you will learn the true story of Korea's most unlikely protagonist. Lee Jung-jae was born at a time and place where dreaming of being famous seemed like something from another world. Son of a humble family in Seoul, he grew up seeing up close the weight of real life. No luxury, no comfort, just the need to survive. Little Jung-jae wasn't the best student, nor the most extroverted, but he always caught attention for his strong gaze, firm posture, and a presence that, even without trying, stood out. In his youth, he worked as a waiter in a cafe to help at home. He had no plans to be an actor, much less a celebrity. Destiny began to change when a customer who always appeared at the restaurant, a famous designer of the time, noticed him and offered him a chance as a model. It was there that, little by little, the name Lee Jung-jae began to circulate behind the scenes of fashion. His unusual look for the time, with strong features and natural elegance, quickly caught attention. But even as a model, he was still just another pretty face, and the world is full of people without talent, but with pretty faces. The real turning point came when he was called to do acting auditions. Without training, without experience, without even believing much in himself, he faced the camera for the first time. He started with small participations, often without dialogue, but his image stuck. He was the type of presence that directors couldn't ignore. Still, Jung-jae knew that could end at any moment, and perhaps because of that, from early on, he took everything with an intensity that bordered on obsession. While his colleagues of the time sought fame, he sought respect. He didn't want to be just handsome, he wanted to be recognized. And there, even before real fame knocked on the door, he already showed the first signs that he wouldn't be just another one on Korean television. The big turning point in Lee Jung-jae's life came in 1994, when he was cast for the drama Sandglass. The political drama, dense and bold for its time, became a cultural phenomenon in South Korea, breaking audience records and putting Korean television on another level. And even though he wasn't the protagonist, Jung-jae stole the scene. His character, a silent bodyguard, became a symbol of the drama and catapulted his image to stardom. Overnight, he went from anonymity to being one of the most talked about faces in the country. Commercials, magazine covers, movie invitations, everything came at the same time. Lee Jung-jae became the typical heartthrob of the 90s, the one everyone wanted to see, comment on, and copy. But sudden fame brought along the weight he wasn't yet prepared to carry. He began receiving similar roles, all exploring his striking appearance and mysterious aura. On the outside, everything seemed perfect. But inside, he was already beginning to feel trapped in an image that didn't correspond to what he wanted to build. He was too handsome to be taken seriously, and the label of model-turned-actor haunted him with each new project. Even so, he didn't stop. He participated in films like The Young Man and City of the Rising Sun, where he acted alongside names like Jung Woo-sung, for example, who became a great friend of Jung-jae. He wanted to prove he wasn't just beauty. He wanted to show he really knew how to act. But the criticism was still divided. Some praised him, others said he lacked emotional depth. In the middle of this whirlwind, Jung-jae found himself increasingly pressured. Fame was addictive, but also relentless. And the higher he climbed, the more he felt he wasn't in control of his own career. He was at his peak, but this peak wasn't exactly as he had dreamed. And little did he know that the fall would come soon after. After the intense brilliance of the 90s, Lee Jung-jae began to feel the side effects of poorly managed fame. Came poorly received films, weak scripts, and choices that seemed desperate to maintain star status. The public, who once applauded him standing up, began to wonder, was it really just appearance? At the turn of the 2000s, he participated in productions that failed in criticism and box office. The most notable failure was Typhoon, a Korean blockbuster that promised too much, but ended up being a disaster in audience and budget. That hurt, not just because of the repercussion, but because it was a project he personally believed in. From there, Lee Jung-jae's name began to disappear little by little. Invitations decreased, confidence too. For almost a decade, he stayed away from the big spotlights. He appeared here and there, but nothing with real impact. And it was during this period that he began to isolate himself. Many said he was distancing himself by his own choice. Others spoke of exhaustion, existential crises, even depression. Things we've seen several times in Korean actresses and actors. Nobody knew the truth for sure, and he didn't make it a point to explain either. What remained were media speculations, of course. They said he was tired of the pressure, that he had problems with directors, that he no longer longer accepted secondary roles. But behind these assumptions, there was something simpler. He was lost. The success that came so fast had disappeared just as quickly, and he no longer knew who he was within that industry. But in this silence, something began to change. Lee Jung-jae started to observe, study, rethink. He stopped accepting any role and began seeking projects with more depth. It was the beginning of a slow reconstruction, away from the spotlights, far from the market's rush. After years in silence, Lee Jung-jae returned, but not the way the public expected, and perhaps that's why it worked so well. He didn't appear with fanfare, nor as the protagonist of a big production. His return was built with strategy, humility, and a precise choice: cinema. In 2010, he made one of the riskiest bets of his career, The Housemaid, a bold, tense, and sexually charged remake. In the role of a cold and manipulative boss, he showed a facet the public didn't know. Nothing heroic, nothing nice, much less a heartthrob. It was a dirty, intense, and uncomfortable role, and it was exactly what he needed to show he had matured as an actor. The criticism, which once treated him with disdain, began to respect him. The public gradually started talking about his name again, and so did directors. Came The Thieves, a box office success, and soon after the acclaimed New World, where he played a police officer infiltrated in a Korean mafia. The performance was so raw, so confident, that many considered that moment Lee Jung-jae's rebirth. He was no longer a handsome guy trying to act, he was an actor, finally. Alongside this, Lee began to get more involved behind the scenes. He created, together with Jung Woo-sung, his own production company, artist company. They wanted to have creative control, no longer depend on agencies that treated actors like products. This change in mentality, behind the scenes and on screens, marked the new phase of his life. What was most impressive about this comeback was the minimalism. Lee Jung-jae didn't make scandals. He didn't use social media. He didn't seek controversy. He just acted, and with an intensity that came from years of storing pain, frustration, and hunger for respect. That turnaround wasn't luck, it was resistance, and he knew the best was yet to come. When Squid Game was released by Netflix in September 2021, the world stopped, literally. The Korean series, until then seen as just another bold bet by the platform, became a global phenomenon. People talked about nothing else. But what few people knew is that Lee Jung-jae almost refused the main role. That's right, the character Seong Gi-hun, who conquered millions of viewers worldwide with his vulnerability and desperation, almost had another face. Lee hesitated for several reasons. First, because it was a project different from everything he had done. Second, because the script initially seemed too risky, violent, socially critical, heavy. And third, and perhaps the most important, because he didn't see himself as someone perfect for such an unstable role, so broken, so distant from the glamour of other protagonists. But after rereading the script, talking with director Hwang Dong-hyuk, and understanding what the story really wanted to say about inequality in Korea, he accepted. And that decision changed everything in his life. What happened next was historic. Squid Game broke all records, dominated the top 1 in more than 90 countries, became a meme, became a theory, and mainly became a cultural symbol. And Lee Jung-jae became a worldwide name, for real. For the first time, he wasn't just an actor revered in Korea. He was invited to interviews in English, awards in the United States, meetings with international celebrities. He won the International Emmy for Best Actor, an unprecedented feat for someone who, just a few years before, was practically forgotten. But along with global fame came discomfort. Lee Jung-jae was always a reserved actor with low public exposure, and he always liked that. It's part of his personality. Suddenly, he had to give uncomfortable interviews, speak a second language on live programs, smile at gala events as if he were used to that. But he wasn't. And if you're paying attention, you understood well that fame wasn't what moved Lee Jung-jae, that he felt more comfortable behind the cameras than under the flashes, and that although grateful, he was surprised, and even a little overwhelmed, by the dimension everything took. It wasn't just a success, it was an avalanche, and he had to learn to surf this wave without losing who he was inside. Despite this, he dealt with everything in the most Lee Jung-jae way possible, with elegance, focus, and lots of dedication. He dedicated himself body and soul to promoting the series, participated in international events, met fans around the world, and took the opportunity to expand his acting beyond Korea. The series transformed him into a reference, not just of talent, but of resistance. A man who, after 3 decades of career, achieved global stardom without ever having molded himself to the easy standards of the industry. And even with the whole world watching, he remained firm in what he always wanted: to act with depth, choose projects with purpose, and build something greater than just fame. Lee Jung-jae is different. He became the greatest Korean actor fighting against all the standards imposed in the industry. He showed that success can come in another way, and that the obligations imposed on Korean actors and actresses could and probably should be reviewed. After Squid Game, Lee Jung-jae could have rested. He could have enjoyed the fame, taken easy roles, lived off the recognition ambition, but he chose another path to build. Not just act, but create, direct, produce, lead. He understood that true influence isn't just in being on screens, but in controlling what happens behind them. That's why he strengthened even more his production company, Artist Company, alongside fellow actor Jung. The idea was simple but bold, to give more creative freedom to actors and creators, away from the abusive pressures of big Korean agencies. They began choosing projects carefully, protecting talents and investing in stories that really matter. But Lee Jung-jae didn't stop there. In 2022, he debuted as director and screenwriter with the film Hunt, a political thriller he also starred in. The reception was solid, and he was praised not only for his mature performance, but for the courage to face such a technical role behind the cameras. It wasn't just ego, it was vision. The next step came with force, Hollywood. He was cast for the main cast of the series The Acolyte from the Star Wars universe, a landmark. A Korean actor with limited English in one of the biggest franchises in the world. For many, it was unexpected. For him, it was another proof that the time of Korea as a supporting actor in the global industry was over, and he would be part of that, as a face, but also as a symbol. Today, Lee Jung-jae is not just an actor, he is a reference. A man who lived the peak, fell into oblivion and came back bigger than ever, who chose not to sell himself for easy roles, who faced his own fear, criticism, and the system, and who now, at 50 years old, has more power, more respect, and more control than he ever had in his life. His name is engraved not only in the history of dramas, but in the history of global contemporary art. And he hasn't finished yet. But what about you? What did you think of the life story of the world's most famous Korean actor? Leave your opinion in the comments, I'll read everything. That's all for today. See you in the next video.